Cleopatra, history's greatest seduction myth. For over 2,000 years, Cleopatra has been remembered as history's greatest seductress, a woman said to control powerful men with beauty alone. But this story was written by her enemies. Cleopatra ruled the richest kingdom of the ancient world, spoke multiple languages, and stood against Rome at its peak. So why was she reduced to a myth of temptation? Because a powerful woman is more dangerous than a seductive one. Today, we uncover the truth behind history's greatest seduction myth. The image of Cleopatra as history's greatest seductress did not come from Egypt. It came from Rome. Almost every written source about her was created by Roman men who were her political enemies. After Cleopatra's death, Octavian, later known as Emperor Augustus, needed a villain to justify his war and his rise to power. Cleopatra was the perfect target. She was foreign, powerful, wealthy, and female. Roman writers painted her as immoral, dangerous, and manipulative, a woman who supposedly controlled Roman leaders through desire rather than intelligence. This narrative helped Rome save face. Instead of admitting that Rome fought a civil war against its own generals, they claimed they were defending themselves from an Eastern temptress. Over time, this propaganda became history. The truth was buried under exaggeration and fear. Cleopatra was not remembered as a ruler because Rome did not want future generations to believe a woman, especially a foreign one, could challenge Roman authority on equal terms. Cleopatra was one of the most educated rulers of the ancient world. Unlike the myth, her true power came from her mind. She spoke at least 7 languages, including Egyptian, Greek, Latin, and several Eastern tongues. This allowed her to communicate directly with diplomats, generals, and merchants without translators. She was trained in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and economics, subjects essential for ruling a complex kingdom like Egypt. Cleopatra was also the first Ptolemaic ruler to fully embrace Egyptian culture, presenting herself as a true pharaoh rather than a distant Greek elite. She understood religion, symbolism, and public image, using them carefully to stabilize her rule. When Egypt faced famine, she reorganized grain distribution to protect her people and economy. These are not the actions of a seductress, they are the actions of a capable monarch. Cleopatra ruled through knowledge, preparation, and political awareness, not charm or beauty. Cleopatra's meeting with Julius Caesar is often told as a dramatic love story, but in reality, it was a calculated political move. At the time, Cleopatra was fighting to reclaim her throne from her brother. Caesar had just arrived in Egypt, seeking stability and resources for Rome. Both needed each other. Cleopatra did not seduce Caesar, she negotiated with him. Their alliance restored her position as queen and secured Rome's access to Egypt's wealth. Caesar benefited greatly from Egypt's grain and money, which helped him maintain power back in Rome. While Cleopatra did have a son with Caesar, he never made her his wife or heir. This relationship was not driven by romance, it was driven by survival and ambition. Cleopatra understood that aligning with Rome's most powerful man was necessary to protect Egypt's independence. This was diplomacy at its highest level, not temptation. Cleopatra's relationship with Mark Antony became the centerpiece of her so-called seduction legend, but once again, the reality was political rather than romantic. Mark Antony was one of Rome's most powerful generals and a co-ruler of the Roman world. His alliance with Cleopatra was strategic, not emotional. Together, they formed a strong political partnership that lasted nearly a decade. They ruled jointly, issued official decrees, shared military planning, and envisioned an especially future that would limit Rome's dominance over the Eastern Mediterranean. This alliance posed a direct threat to Octavian, Antony's rival in Rome. Unable to defeat Antony through argument alone, Octavian attacked Cleopatra's image instead. He portrayed Antony as a once great Roman hero corrupted and weakened by a foreign queen. This narrative turned Roman public opinion against both of them. The conflict that followed was deliberately framed not as Roman versus Roman, but as Rome defending itself against Cleopatra. This lie justified Octavian's war and helped secure his ultimate victory. Cleopatra was blamed because it was easier to accuse a woman than to admit that Rome was destroying itself from within. Contrary to popular belief, ancient writers rarely described Cleopatra as exceptionally beautiful. What they emphasized instead was her intelligence, confidence, voice, and commanding presence. She knew how to speak with precision, listen with intent, and adapt to the people in front of her, abilities far more influential than physical appearance. Cleopatra understood human nature, politics, and power, and she used that understanding to rule effectively. Over time, however, later generations transformed her into a symbol of beauty and temptation. Reducing her influence to appearance made her easier to dismiss and her authority easier to erase. This pattern is not unique to Cleopatra. Powerful women throughout history have often been remembered this way, admired for looks, blamed for collapse, and denied recognition for leadership. In reality, Cleopatra governed Egypt during extreme economic pressure, foreign threats, and internal instability. She negotiated directly with Rome, controlled one of the wealthiest kingdoms of the ancient world, and resisted full Roman domination far longer than anyone expected. Yet history chose to remember her as a temptation instead of a strategist. That distortion reveals more about the biases of those recording history than about Cleopatra herself. Cleopatra's death marked the final end of ancient Egypt as an independent and sovereign kingdom. With her defeat, Egypt did not simply fall, it was absorbed and claimed as Rome's personal possession. Octavian emerged victorious from the civil war and soon became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. Once power was secured, history was rewritten by the winners. Cleopatra's achievements as a ruler were erased, and her story was reshaped into a warning rather than a legacy. Her intelligence was labeled manipulation, her diplomacy was reduced to seduction, her resistance against Rome was portrayed as weakness instead of courage. Yet when we look beyond Roman propaganda, a very different figure emerges. Cleopatra was a ruler who stood against the most powerful empire the world had ever seen and refused to surrender her kingdom quietly. She did not fall because she lacked wisdom or strength. She fell because Rome was relentless and unstoppable. Despite centuries of distortion, her legacy endured. Modern historians now recognize Cleopatra as a skilled politician, a learned scholar, and a determined queen who fought to preserve her nation. Cleopatra was not history's greatest seduction myth. She was history's clearest reminder that truth is often written by those who prevail. Cleopatra was not history's greatest seductress. She was one of its most misunderstood leaders. Her story reminds us that history is often written by those who win, not by those who deserve to be remembered fairly.